So we are very honored to have Myra joining us here to share her knowledge on the Beethoven Opus 26, or the so-called Funeral March Sonata. We all wonder why is it called Funeral March Sonata, and she's gonna share with us about why is so-called that nickname. And so far, I don't think we have talked anything about Beethoven variation form. If you talk about Beethoven variation, normally we think about the Eroica variation or Diabelli, or maybe the famous variation in C minor, but we so far haven't talked about that. So Opus 26 is the first sonatas that actually use variation form as the first movement. So Myra is going to share about the performance, because she did the entire thing also for audition, I think, right? To this, did you do this as the final recital?
No, I did the pastoral as the.
Oh, you did the pastoral.
Yeah.
Okay.
But,
so
I played this also for quite a while now.
Okay, that's great. So I think we are ready to start. I think most of us are here. It's right at 7, but before we start, and how's the situation in Finland? Let's talk about the current situation, because every country, they all have their own protocol regarding this virus.
Right. Oh, maybe somebody put their mic on. Okay, thank you. Right. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Miss Christie, for the very nice words and for the introduction. And I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy that you invited me to hold this webinar session about Beethoven Sonata. And yeah, in Finland, I'm happy to be here, really. I'm grateful that I'm here. The situation is under control, although it did get it does get a little worse lately, but maybe one day there are like 300 cases now. But a few days before, not a few days before, maybe like last week or last 2 weeks, there were just like 100 or 90 something cases per day. So I think it's because of the football match, and you know, Europe is all about football, and that's why people are getting more relaxed about restrictions. But yeah, it's great to be here. I mean, we can still go to restaurants and to cafes, but sadly the concerts in the concert halls are not yet open for public. Being careful about that, but let's hope very soon that it's going to be open, everything, that the restrictions are going to be lifted, and then we can live a normal life after the vaccination.
Yeah, that's great. I also pray for Indonesia, as we are one of the first to the top with the most case in a day. So praying that this is gonna pass, and all of you who are sick because you are healthy, then you can tune in and listen to this. So praise God for our health, and we are ready to listen from Myra in just a few seconds. So yeah, okay, so we're gonna just use Bahasa, English, I mean, chill. I mean, at the end, you get to ask Myra about anything. In particular, it could be about the piece itself, or you want to ask her about anything about auditioning or any general stuff. You're welcome to, okay? So for the rest of the time, I will give it to Myra, and she's gonna share with us about the Sonata in A flat major, Opus 26.
Okay, right. So I was about to introduce myself, but Miss Christine did it very well. So, but maybe it's great for people who just came in. I'm Mira, and then now I'm studying in the Sibelius Academy. I'm doing my master's program. Today I'm going to talk about Beethoven's Piano Sonata Opus 26 in A flat major. Should I share my screen? Well, I can just talk like this. So this sonata is composed in 1800 until 1801. I'll just talk a little bit briefly about the background of this music. But there is these early sketches which were found. And these sketches date back to 1795, 1796. So it's quite a few years earlier. The sonata is dedicated to Prince Karl von Lichnowsky. He was Beethoven's patron, a very important figure in Beethoven's musical career. And the sonata itself is also quite well recognized. It's been arranged and adapted into several other works. And for example, there's this quartet that's also arranged based on the sonata, and then also in the 1830s, there's one variation of the first movement which was integrated in a Parisian ballet. And then there were also arrangements for vocal works for piano and voice and piano. And it's also interesting to know that Beethoven himself also wished that there were suitable words or lyrics which could fit in the main theme or the theme of this sonata. Okay. Now, this sonata is special because usually when one talks about sonata, then you can see at least one movement, usually the first movement with the sonata form, but it's not the case here. The first movement is written as theme and variations. There's one theme and 5 variations. The second movement is a scherzo movement. The third movement is a slow movement. Don't worry, I'll mix English and Indonesian. So, and the fourth movement is a rondo. But you can also, one can also regard the last movement as sonata rondo because there are sonata features that you can relate to. But still, it's not the conventional sonata that we usually find in a piano sonata. Well, yeah, because the first movement is theme and variations. There is something that I would like to be clear about before we go deeper into the piece. I'm going to share my screen. Says here I have to use. So, yeah. Can you see my screen with the score?
Yes, perfect. Yeah.
All right, thank you. So if I say, for this seminar, if I say theme, I'm referring to the first page of the first movement, so the whole page until here basically. Jadi dalam seminar ini supaya jelas ya kalau disebutkan theme atau tema, yang saya maksud itu sampai satu halaman ini sampai double bar line di sini. If I say main theme, then I only mean bar 1 until bar 16. That's the main theme here. Jadi kalau disebutkan main theme, yang saya maksud itu dari awal sampai sini. Kenapa saya bedakan seperti ini? Karena takutnya nanti kecampur, jadinya bingung. Karena biasanya sonata form itu bukan di first movement-nya itu, sonata form ada main theme, terus development and then recapitulation. Tapi karena ini emang terdiri dari tema dan variation lainnya, jadi saya ingin membedakan antara tema satu halaman ini dan juga main theme. Okay, so now I'm going to play the main theme first in the piano. I hope the sound works. Well, I can check the sound with you first. So that's the main theme. And it reminds me a little bit of Beethoven's Opus 110, also in A flat major. Yeah, and also this very beautiful Schubert impromptu, D935, I guess it's this one. Something like that, but I've never played this piece before, but it's a wonderful piece as well, also written in A flat major. Okay, so the theme itself has a character of this, it has this calm character, this serene character, and then it's also like choir, choir like choral. Jadi tema ini seperti kalau ke gereja dengar kur, orang nyanyi choir itu ada karakter seperti ini ya, yang tenang dan damai. Gitu. And then the struktur dari tema ini is first of all the main theme. Oh, sorry, I have to say main theme. Main theme is 16 bars, and then it's from a bigger picture. It's divided into 2 parts. The first part is from the beginning until bar 8 here. So here you have a comma. Da, 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 you have a half cadence here, and it's like a comma. And then the opening comes again in also in a varied version. And then there is a perfect cadence here in the main key. So it's like a full stop di sini. Jadi itu seperti titik akhir dari kalimat. Okay, and then what about the harmony? The harmony is actually not very complicated. If you can see these first 4 bars, the first 4 bars is actually just tonic and dominant, and tonic and dominant. So but Beethoven didn't write something like that. He didn't write that way, but he did. He put this suspension, tension resolution effect. For example, what I wrote here, the 4/2 suspension, and then he inserted some rhythmic motifs that he's going to use later in the piece as well. And the way he shaped the lines and the melody and everything, it all sums up to this beautiful theme, main theme. Yeah. And as I mentioned before, there were early sketches dating back to 1795, 1796. I'm going to share them now. So, okay. Right. Okay. So as you can see, the upper one is the early sketch of the main theme, and then the final version is what I've just played just now. Beda ya, it's different. The upper one is like the simpler version. The melody is pretty much the same, but one striking difference is the key signature. You have 6/8 here in the sketch, and then you have 3/8 in the final version. So what difference does it make in the music? If you have 6/8, then one gets the feeling of a longer phrase, and it's easier kind of to shape it in comparison to 3/8. Because if you conduct or if you count 6/8, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But 3/8 is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So there is a risk that things get a little bit static, and then that it's hard to achieve this long line, but it's still a challenge, and then it's also something that the pianist has to practice and has to work on. Okay, And also about this main theme, I've mentioned earlier that there are like two parts. I forgot to say that if you learn music theory, classical music theory, maybe you're familiar with the term period. So this is pretty much also the case, period, but we have here 8 and 8, and then the first half can be divided again into two parts. So you have 4 plus 4, and then also the consequence can be divided into another two parts, 4 plus 4. Now, the next sketch that I would like to show is this one. Jadi yang ini itu lanjutan dari apa yang baru saya mainkan tadi. Ini bagian tengah, bagian B section dari temanya. I'm going to play the early sketch so that it's easier to tell the difference. That's the early sketch, and then the final version is from, I'll play it from this F in the left hand with the sforzato mark. And then we are back to the main theme. Okay, so of course you can see there are a lot of difference here. But one thing that I would like to point out is the syncopation that starts already in the F in the left hand. It's something that we don't really have in the early sketch. And this syncopation is important because it aids the flow of the music. As I mentioned before, the music tends to be more static with the 3/8 time signature, but with the syncopation, everything seems to be more flowing. So if it's without the syncopation, it would be. But with the syncopation, so that makes a big difference. Yeah, I think that's all that I want to say from the from the theme. Yep, let's go to the first variation. So now I'm going to share back the music score. Oh, sorry. Okay. Right, the first variation. As you can see, we have a lot of these 30-second figures. Of these figures that I circled in red, it occurs every time, almost in every bar. And this is actually something that we already had before in the theme, if you remember. It's from there. And then Beethoven took that element and put it in the first variation. It's also written in A flat major, the whole variation. And you can see there's another syncopation here, also an element that we have discussed earlier. And then this pip, 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 this staccato in the 16th notes also comes from the variation of the main theme here. So you can see that things are connected with each other. And now let's go to the second variation, also written in A flat major. What's different here is we have the bass as the the bass which play the main theme. And roll of the right hand is like an accompaniment. One keyword here is repetition, because as you can see we have a lot of repetition. Jadi ada banyak note yang diulang. Jelas ya. And then now if I sing the bass, again this syncopation came in the second variation, something that we already had before. Another element that I would like to point out here is the surprise element. We have suddenly a sudden leap to a higher register in this section. Maybe I can try to play it. So I'll play from the beginning of the second variation. And please take note of the D flat here. So it's something that's unexpected. And then also here is where the surprise element came. So there. So all of these things, the syncopated rhythm, the leaps to higher register, the dissonances, the surprise element, it all sums up to the dynamic movement of the variation, something to balance what we had earlier. Okay, now the third variation is the one that has the biggest contrast with the other variations, including with the theme. Why? Because it's, first of all, the key signature. It's written in A flat minor. So it's kind of like the introduction to the funeral march that's going to come in the third movement. And harmonically, it's more complex than the others. I have written some harmonic analysis here. And also the melody, which creates this very sad and sorrowful atmosphere. And the middle section with this descent, stepwise descent, it's like a lament. How do you say lament in Indonesian? I don't know, I'm not sure.
Lament is to be sad for something.
Yeah.
Duka ya, lamentation. Benar nggak?
Yeah, but lament is like, I don't know how to say it.
Cry for something, like in pain. Lament.
Yeah, in pain. You are very sad and you're heartbroken, and yeah. We start off here with an A flat minor tonic chord, and then I'm not going to do a full analysis of the variation, but one important thing that I would like to show is this Neapolitan 6 chord that we have here, which doesn't resolve to the 1/6/4 or to the dominant, but it goes on to the diminished 7th. So it's like screaming inside, you know. And bagi yang, maybe for you who haven't really studied the music theory, Neapolitan 6 chord is a very sorrowful chord, usually associated with, it's basically a major chord in a minor key. So if you are very sad and something and you have this major chord, it's like you have a small ray of hope that you cling on to. And I can try to play like a Neapolitan cadence. in D minor, for example, if you have D minor. And then the Neapolitan is, this is Neapolitan. Yeah, so it's really, it's major chord, but it's really sorrowful because it's like having a hope that you want to cling on to and you don't want to let go. So this is what happens here. We have first of all the tonic in A flat minor, and then Neapolitan 6 chord came here. So yeah, we will also see the same thing in the third movement with the funeral march. And notice the descent here, the stepwise descent to the from G flat to F flat, because it's going to come again in the next variation. And yeah, we are in D flat minor for a moment here, which is subdominant to A flat minor. But then in the next bar, we are back to A flat minor. And this stepwise descent in the next variation, it becomes something that is alive. In the third variation, the stepwise descent is and then the fourth variation, it becomes something that's very positive and very delightful, very graceful. And yes, you also have the syncopation again, what we had earlier. That's all I have to say from this variation. Okay, again on the fifth variation. Another stepwise descent that we just talked about. Also here we have what we call latent polyphony. If you look at it secara visually, it feels like it's like a ongoing triplets, never-ending triplets. But there are hidden melodies. Jadi ada melodi yang tersembunyi. Namely, in the third note of each triplet, that's where the main theme hides. You know, so. So, it's here. But Beethoven didn't write it, obviously. But I would play it that the third note is held longer to highlight this main theme. Okay. And then in bar, sorry, I'm going back here. In bar 9, the polyphonic structure becomes more obvious. It becomes apparent. You have it here. The theme, and Beethoven wrote the stem down to emphasize the presence of the theme. And then we have coda, which is like the ending to the music, to the variation, or to the whole movement. It seems as if it's a new thing, but it's actually also an element that Beethoven took from the theme, or from the main theme's ending. And he took that motif and put it here, and he extended it into a coda. So the whole movement is actually, it's a theme and variations. Variations, of course, they are different in character, especially the third variation, but they are in unity. They are count as one with all of this, with the harmony, of course, except for the third variation. The use of harmony, and also the use of the motivic elements, which are linked to one another. Okay, so that's the whole first movement. And I would recommend that we listen to the first movement now. I'm going to share my. Oh, this is not the first movement. Sorry. Oops. Okay. Sorry, is it just me or is it so small, the volume?
The volume is a bit soft, but it's clear. Yeah,
It's clear?
but it's clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to repeat. Yeah. Okay, I would also now play the second movement directly, and then I'll talk about the second movement. Let me see. Is it this?
Bravo.
Okay, so that's the first and the second movement. Um, so about the second movement, it's a scherzo, as I mentioned before. Oh, first of all, what's a scherzo? Scherzo, maybe anybody wants to say what's a scherzo? Scherzo is a joke, leluzzon, gongqiu, scherzo. So, and maybe you can listen also from the music that it's more lively. It has this witty, playful character, and maybe this is just from me, but I feel like this sounds a little bit like the Happy New Year. And a Happy New Year, you know. And I find it's a good, for me, it's a good way to kind of think of this piece as not as a joke, as something that's more playful, because I personally get a little bit like nervous because of the thirds in the video section. But anyway, yeah. And the piece, the movement is written in A flat major with a trio that follows in D flat major. And obviously the trio is a contrasting section to the, in comparison to the first part of the scherzo. And that is normal. What is not normal is that the scherzo is located in the second movement, not in the third movement, because usually in a sonata, the second movement is supposed to be a slow movement, and then the scherzo will come as the third movement. But here the roles is switched. And yeah, I'm not going to talk a lot about the scherzo. It's a lovely movement. There's one place that I would like to point out. So now I have to share my screen back to the score. It's right, it's here. You know, it goes on forever. And then, so it goes on for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 bars of just pretty much the same fundaments. So it consists of only 2 chords, namely this is the first one, and it's the harmonic, not the harmonic, but the rhythm is also pretty much the same. It's like long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short, long. So this effect, it becomes static, and then it feels as if the time stops for a while, and then it triggers the listener's, you know, attention and imagination, because nobody knows what's going to happen next. Normally, people would, after this, people would expect the F minor chord to come. So in here, that's also the case and also not the case, because the F minor chord does come here, like, but not in the F minor tonic context, because it's like just a passing to the new key, which is E flat major in this passage. And yeah, it's pretty much what I want to say from this movement. There's nothing else. True. Yeah. Okay, now we go on to the third movement. This is the funeral march. It's the very exciting movement. So this title here, I don't know how to read it, but it means funeral march on a death of a hero. So the hero here, you can listen to the presence of the hero, especially in the middle section, in this tremolo figure, and then with the 2 chords. It's like if you are in a funeral march of a hero, if you watch a movie, then they usually have this salutes, gunfire, and then I picture it that way. And then this tremolo, just like the drum. So that has an association to the hero part. And then the whole funeral march. Oh, funeral march, maybe everybody knows it's Indonesian is upacara kematian. And it's written in A flat minor. But the harmony here is more complex than the other movements. I wrote some important points in the harmonic progression. First, you start in A flat minor, and then you modulate. It modulates to C flat major, which is the, what is this? Yeah, A flat minor to C flat major, which is the median of A flat minor. I mean, their connection is a median. And then you have B minor here. It's B minor, it's enharmonic to C flat minor. But why did I write C flat minor in parentheses? It's because I'm finding the connection between the old key and the new key. So C flat major, C flat minor is the parallel key. And of course, Beethoven didn't write C flat minor because it's hard to write C flat minor. There are too many accidentals. It's hard to write and it's hard to read. So I'm happy that he wrote B minor. And the next important key is D major, which is the relative of B minor. And one important feature is this double tritones, a very hard dissonance. It's a very harsh dissonance. And where does this tritone resolve? To a very beautiful E flat major triad, but it is interrupted directly again by the tritone. And then another row of tritones. And then the E flat major triad comes again, but the funeral march, with the dotted rhythm, interrupts the hope of the E flat major triad. And this dotted rhythm is something that we already had before in the first movement. It's from here, and then Beethoven took that element to the funeral march. Or actually, in the funeral march, it's normal to have, it's quite common to have this dotted rhythm as one of the main motivic elements. Okay. Now we talked about the Neapolitan sixth chord, which occurs in the third variation. Here it occurs here in this passage, and it resolves to the dominant seventh eventually. But the whole passage here, when you listen to the piece later, take a close attention to this passage. It sounds like somebody is screaming, screaming for help or for hope. And yeah, this middle section, the B section of the whole movement is, as I mentioned before, is associated with the hero. And then we go back again to the A section of the movement. Yes. And then we have a coda. That's where the coda starts. Okay, so now let's listen to the third movement. Just one moment. Okay. So this is the third and the fourth movement. Okay, yeah. So the third and the fourth movement, and I will talk about the fourth movement directly after we finish listening to the third and the fourth movement. Okay, so that's the third and the fourth movement.
Bravo! What a
Thank
wonderful
you.
performance. Yeah.
Thank you. One thing I've just realized, it's 4 o'clock. So how much time do I have?
Well, we have a few minutes, so and then we have a Q&A. So
All right,
you're welcome.
I'm going to make this quick. So the third and the fourth movement is obviously a big contrast. The third movement is about death, it's about funeral march, and then the fourth movement starts. Very alive, very lively. One of Beethoven's biographer. I'm going to share the PowerPoint again. So, Wasilewski is his name. He associated these two movements with one of Johann Wolfgang von Goethe's work called Wilhelm Meister's Lehrjahre, or in English it's called Wilhelm Meister's Apprenticeship. And in this novel, there was a scene where there's a funeral service for one of the figures, and then after that, there was a speech saying, "Children, come back to life." So this connection and contrast between death and life is something that we feel from the third and fourth movement, and it's also something that this Beethoven biographer, this Wasilewski, associated with. And interestingly, Beethoven also wrote 4 songs for Lieder, for voice and piano, from this particular work of Goethe, and it's called Sehnsucht, WOO134, and it's basically 4 songs which is based on the same text. Okay, if you associate this final movement with the word life, then one tends to avoid a too brilliant execution. So brilliant would be, not like that, but this is more alive. I mean, in the end of the day, of course, you can do whatever you want, but I mean, in my opinion, I would go for something that's more fine, more delicate in a way, because of the key in one aspect, and also one more thing is the latent polyphony that we had before. Kalau masih ingat dari movement yang pertama itu ada hidden melodies, dan di sini juga sama halnya. And okay, how should I do this? I would like to show this 21 Etüden für Klavier nach dem Handexemplar Beethovens aus dem Besitz Anton Schindler. So Beethoven held Kramer's etudes in a high esteem, and it's said that this 21 etudes contains annotations from Beethoven himself while he is teaching his nephew Karl. And its Besitz here means ownership. It's in the ownership of Anton Schindler. So these are the comments that Beethoven has for the etudes, for the Kramer etudes. And this is one of the etudes that I picked out. He says here the longs and shorts must be attended throughout. The first note long, the second note short, the third in its turn long, and then short. So basically, you have long, short, long, short. It means that you held the first and the third note long, the second and the fourth note short. What happens is that you have this melody which came out if you held the first and third note longer. So you have this hidden melody, just like what we have discussed before. And then the next one, the next etude is this one. This etude is obviously written in a different manner. You have a very clear differentiation or very clear polyphonic structure. You have 1 line, 2 lines in the right hand. But sorry. But what Beethoven wrote is, if the etude is written as follows, as 1 line, Still, the first note of each group would have to be uniformly accentuated and held down. The middle voice, this one, E, C, F, C, G, C, must not be given out with the same strength as that of the upper voice. So as a result, if it's written this way, you still have this way of playing or this execution. Now I know that there are some, I don't know, controversy about Anton Schindler being inaccurate about Beethoven in his conversation books, but I think that in terms of the performance practices, it's still something that we could look up to, and it's good things, good stuff, what we can see from these 21 etudes aus dem Besitz Anton Schindler. Yeah, but in the end, whether or not Beethoven intended his final movement to be played this way, this in a similar way. So I mean, like that you hold the first and third note longer, and then that you produce this hidden, that you highlight this hidden melody. I don't know if Beethoven intended that way, but that's the way I played it. And I find that by playing it this way, I avoid this brilliant execution, and I achieve a more singing line, singing melody, instead of a better phrasing and character, which suits A flat major more. And Czerny also mentioned in his pianoforte school, Opus 500, about this sonata, about the last movement, that one should avoid a too brilliant playing, but of course you should also avoid being too sentimental in playing the movement. So I think that's all from me. If you have any questions.
Very well discussion and overview of the whole thing from the beginning to the end. And it's very interesting how Beethoven brought all this contrast between first, second, third, and fourth, instead of putting the march, funeral march in the second movement, like what he did with the
exactly. Yeah.
So he did the scherzo, so because variation is already very long and quite serious, and then you have a little
true.
And then the funeral march, and comes the fourth movement. Very interesting about what you talk about the last movement. Instead of playing it, I think we all might expect the last movement to be, you know, presto and brillante. Like victory because it's live. But what he wrote on the declammer etudes is a very interesting point, you know. So you take a look at that and see there's another way of looking at how he wrote the music. But I think it's very clear because there's a long slur in the very beginning, and also if you bring out the melody, it's like, you know, counterpoint with the left hand, when the left hand.
Yes, true. The left hand, like couple bars later, the left hand has this theme of the last movement. And also if you read about this Czerny pianoforte Schule Opus 500, then it's amazing how much he talked about phrasing, you know, and then how much he talked about agogics. And I think people on those days, they really respect this, value this music making, you know, not just a brilliant way. Of course, there is a brilliant way of playing, but he kind of give a very clear instructions on which passage do you play brilliantly, and on which passage do you like this, you know, Latin polyphony, that you pick out some hidden melodies and kind of highlight these features.
Very interesting.
Something to think about.
Yeah, bravo on the presentation, also the performance. You did a very well job. Yeah. So right now we're going to have a Q&A. So anybody who, if you have any question about what you just heard just now, you can ask in the chat box, or you can just unmute yourself and ask anything. Any question? Well, we kind of not have any question. I guess it's quite clear and straightforward. It's all there in the music. Yeah. So probably you can share about, you can check out her recording on YouTube. Yeah. So maybe you can, subscribe to her channel.
Share, like, comment.
Yeah, and then on today's discussion also, we will upload it will be on YouTube, so you can rewatch it. And any question about, maybe you could share about the inspiration behind learning this, what prompts you to learn this, or is there any particular recording that you are drawn into?
Oh,
interpretation.
I started playing this piece actually already last year. So before I came to Finland, I already started the master studies for 1 semester in Freiburg. And that's where I started learning this piece already. But then I decided to come here, and then I continued a little bit with my teacher here, Tuija. And yeah, and then I didn't play it for quite some time already, and I picked it back again for like a summer course last week. And yeah, it's why I picked this piece. I just love I think I'm in love with the main theme. Really, it's a perfect combination between simplicity and also, I don't know, richness of the harmony and the choral-like character. I really love it. Yeah.
Very simple theme, but that's the simplicity.
But it's just so beautiful, sublime.
A good composer normally just needs simple theme and develop them in a way where a normal composer won't be able to do it. So
true. As I said before, it could write, but he didn't do that, obviously, because he is such a genius. And yeah, I don't know what to say, but I really like the piece, and I really recommend for all of you to try playing this piece if you play the piano, or you can start if you haven't.
It's not obvious. It's not very popular compared to the ones before Opus 22. Of course, it's sandwiched by all these big pieces, of course. So after that, well, Opus 27 number 1 is also not as popular, but people normally go to the Moonlight or the Opus 22. So they're kind of like in the middle. But there you go. I mean, after all, I mean, everybody would know all this. Beethoven Sonata is quite standard. Yeah,
true.
But it's not
that easy, really. I thought at first it's okay, but then when I got into it, it's really hard to actually achieve this long line that I talked about in the beginning, in the theme, especially.
All right, great. So thank you so much for sharing with us, and hope to see you again. Stay safe and keep making music and share knowledge with us here. We're looking forward for the next session.